practiced U.S. immigration law under multiple different presidencies and their agendas for enforcement of immigration laws, it's important to pay attention to what their agenda is when it comes to applying for TN status for Canadians at ports of entry. And under Donald Trump, we had him for 4 years, so I'm very familiar with what a TN application looks like under Trump and what they expect at the border. There will be enhanced scrutiny over the Biden administration, like it was under Trump's first term. And even more so this time with his enhanced security and vetting measures that he has implemented through executive order. So what does that mean for a TN visa application for a Canadian at a port of entry? Well, there's 5 points that I want to cover that you should pay careful attention to if you're applying for TN status at a port of entry as a Canadian. One is make sure you pay strict adherence to the TN occupation list and job qualifications. And I can't overemphasize this. Many times employers will send their employees to the port of entry with an offer letter for some internal job title, and I'll use the example as vice president of finance or whatever it might be. That is not an occupation that is listed under the TN occupation list. And then the duties could be different from that occupation as well. It's very important that if you are applying for TN status at a port of entry, that the occupation you are applying under is an actual occupation listed under the TN occupations list, and that your qualifications and your duties are aligned with that occupation. Second, enhanced employer verification and fraud detection. And we have seen this just in the short days that Trump has been in office. CBP officers are looking more into your employer and your employer contact and your employer details. Make sure if you're applying that the letterhead that your support letter is printed on is from a U.S. entity. It has their contact information, it has their address, their phone number, so that CBP can call them and verify the terms of your employment. And make sure it's a legitimate employer. Right? They have an office in the United States. They have operations in the United States. CBP will verify. They will check to determine whether or not you do have a legitimate offer from a legitimate U.S. entity in the United States. Or if you're servicing a contract, that contract is with a legitimate U.S. entity. Third, the heightened scrutiny of your past travel, work, and immigration history. Prior visa denials, prior refusals to entry into the United States, prior difficulty with the TN visa application. These are all reasons for CBP to dig deeper into your application and your history and to deny a future application. If they find anything in your history that they deem would make you inadmissible to the United States, they can refuse your entry. So make sure that you are honest about your past travel, your past work, and your immigration history, that you're not trying to hide anything. Nothing is worse than trying to apply for TN and then they ask you a question about your past and then you try to cover it up. Most of the time, it's something minor. It's not going to make you inadmissible, but then when you lie and try to cover it, then it absolutely will lead to your refusal of entry to the United States, not only under that TN, but also for future entries. Fourth, make sure that you have detailed and well-prepared documentation, and this is absolutely essential. Your employer support letter should detail your duties, your salary, how that position qualifies under the qualifying TN occupation, proof of your credentials, your degrees, your licenses, your experience letters if required, and evidence that your role is not self-employment or a managerial role. These are all common reasons for refusal if you show up to the border with ill-prepared documentation, poorly written support letter, and lack of evidence to prove your qualifications under the TN occupation. Remember, the burden is on you to prove that you qualify. And finally, increased focus on security and background checks. CBP shares records with Canada. They share records with USCIS. They share records with other government agencies in the United States. They have extensive records of your prior criminal history and your travel, and you should expect to face scrutiny based on your background, and they will dig into you for security reasons and for increased vetting. And this is common. If they find anything in your history, in your background checks, on your file that they think would make you inadmissible to the United States, CBP has very broad discretion to either admit you or to refuse you based on your past history, whether it be criminal or immigration, security concerns, whatever it might be. So make sure when you are going through that interview process that you are forthright, that you are honest in your answers with CBP, and that you address any concerns that they might have. So in the end, make sure that you are prepared for this increased scrutiny of TN applications at port of entries under the Trump administration. It has already happened. We've seen it happen to many of our clients. However, if you are well prepared, you have the proper documentation, you know what to expect during that interview process, and you are qualified for the TN occupation, then chances are that if you fit into that box that they're looking to fit you into for that TN occupation, then you are approvable for TN status. Just make sure that you are properly prepared and have the documentation to demonstrate it.